Welcome to Horror Movies and Beyond, a show about reviewing horror movies for the living to understand the dead. I'm your host, Ivotres Littles, and this is Shudderary, where we go behind the screens of Shudder original and exclusive movies. Today, I have a really awesome special guest, author Daniel Kraus, who wrote some of my favorite segments from Shudder original TV series Creepshow. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, I mean, it's totally my pleasure. I'm a big fan, so I was excited to get your letter.
I am so glad that you're joining me on this because you're pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you.
And like I said, you're a great author, but some of the two segments from Creepshow, they're my favorites. I absolutely just love them.
Great.
And I was like, I gotta talk to this guy because they're so fun and they're funny and quirky and really, really good. So before we get into that, how are you doing? I mean, through all this pandemic and just craziness.
Well, I'm doing pretty well. It hasn't. I think writers have been sort of lucky during the pandemic. Like, if you're a full-time writer anyway, your life hasn't been, your work life hasn't been hit all that much. Typically, you're still sitting at home, doing what you were doing. So, in that respect, I feel lucky. And business, and also I think generally what I do is I write novels, and that business has survived the pandemic pretty well so far. It hasn't been greatly impacted. I think people were still reading, and in some cases even reading more. So it's been a relatively stable profession to be in through all this. Of course, there's sort of the mental weight and emotional weight that we all feel what's going on. But as far as just the day-to-day process, it's all been pretty normal.
I'm glad to hear that. I really, really am. Writing is such a difficult thing for me. It's like I have the words in my head.
Yeah.
It's putting them on paper is just what words to use, what are interesting. And as an author, and a writer, and and all these great things you do, how is that any still challenging for you? Are you still able to just it comes easy over time?
Yeah. I think it's challenging if you're doing it right. I think it's if it gets too easy, then chances are you're falling into overly comfortable patterns. It's something I wonder about people who write series that are 10 books long. It's like at some point you got to be switching it into autopilot. Like it'd be really hard not to. So what I try to do is I just try to write a bunch of different kinds of stuff, different genres, different age ranges, whether it's adult or kids or teens or whatever, different medium. So we're talking about, it could be a screenplay, it could be a novel, it could be a comic book or something like that. So I just always try to wake myself up by shifting between these things. So I can't ever get too comfortable. And then within the novel, I'll usually try to create something that actually gives me problems to deal with. Like maybe the book's told in a certain voice that I have to stick to really diligently, that creates issues with just how I construct sentences.
Okay. Makes sense. I still have much to learn when it comes to writing.
Sure. We all do.
Yeah. But besides book writer, author, you've also, wrote some segments on Creepshow, TV series specifically. Have Pipe Screams and The Things in Oakwood's Past. They're great. So there will be spoilers. If you guys do not want to hear the spoilers, please go to Shudder and check out the entire series, but specifically Pipe Screams and The Things in Oakwood's Past. But before you do that, make sure you like and subscribe. But if you want to stick around, go ahead. So here we go. We're going to start with pipe screams. That one, what's the inspiration? But before I really get into my own thing about, hair I've had to battle, like, I got to know the inspiration behind, pipe screams. I mean, there's, you have Victoria, that was just terrible landlord. Believe me, I've met some real life ones like that. But then you have the Cloggy,
yeah,
the battle of the hair monster or whatever. What was the inspiration behind that story?
Well, there's kind of two. The first inspiration was when I first started thinking of ideas for Creepshow. I had an idea about a toupee, and we were going to call it Hell Toupee. And but then in talking with Greg Nicotero about it, we started thinking, well, what if it's more of like a hair claw, because we like the idea of something coming up from the pipes. And then that sort of led to, that inspired me, because I too have lived in apartment buildings that had all sorts of problems and bad landlords and major issues with hair clogs and various things clogging. I mean, if you've lived in a certain kind of apartment building, you know that everyone flushes all sorts of weird things down the drain. And you all have to collectively deal with it. There'll be, I've seen so many flooded basements and just disgusting spills, and and all that was sort of traumatic for me, having to deal with all that in the past. So immediately I was like, okay, I know who this landlord character should be. And then it was really just a matter of falling back on my love of Creepshow. The original movie. I'm just a huge fan of Creepshow and George Romero. And as you probably know, I co-authored this novel with George Romero, The Living Dead. So I'm just a huge devotee of Romero, and I've seen Creepshow, 100 times, and I've really kind of studied his work in that movie, and all the old EC comics that they're based on. I love those. And so the sort of, I wanted to make a really classic type of Creepshow that felt like it could be a segment almost from the original film. Like, it had a bad guy who had a comeuppance. There were people who were wronged, who would sort of get their revenge. These are all kind of classic elements of a Creepshow story. So once we had kind of the character of the, as soon as I knew who the bad guy was, then it really all sort of fell into place about who the other characters should be.
Oh, okay. I could say for the casting, they picked the right people.
Yeah.
Barbara was I absolutely love Barbara, but man, I was like, oof, I don't know.
Yeah.
She's playing her too well.
Yeah, right.
Too good.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
When it grabbed his hand, and it was just so disgusting. There were a few things that I saw. Like, there was a Tales from the Crypt scene. It reminded me of that.
The ventriloquist dummy.
A ventriloquist.
And his hand was his absorbed brother.
Twin. Yeah.
And so it had like a little face on
it.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest episodes of Tales from the Crypt. Yeah.
It scared me. That when I was young, when I saw that, I was like, that's pretty creepy. And it reminded me of that. It
was so shocking when I saw that episode. Like, I didn't expect it to go that way.
No. That one, it reminded me of Evil Dead 2, when he was fighting, his own hand, and then when he grabbed the plate was trying to get it off, it was like, that reminded me of that. I mean, there's so many other movies like I can't really think of, but those two kind of really stuck on me.
I think those are both smart comparisons. I don't know that I was consciously thinking of that Tales from the Crypt episode or Evil Dead 2, but they're both certainly things that I like, and it would make sense that they were bubbling around in my head a little bit. One thing I definitely thought about when writing was I think it's called the Zuni Fetish doll from Trilogy of Terror. If you've ever seen that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like the idea. Seen
that a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been a while for me too. But I like the idea of something like a small creature that was kind of scary, but also in a weird kind of way, almost a little bit cute. And having to sort of try to go around and stomp it out like a little mouse or something.
Yeah, and I just thought the whole atmosphere was just so, it was so funny and so fun at the same time. Like, you felt sorry for the plumber Linus, but then again, it was just like, this is ridiculous. But you understood the assignment. You understood that clogs are terrible and they could just be a nuisance. And that is what that was. From it grabbing on his hand, grabbing on his face, and slithering across the floor. The detail in that was so awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And I think it has its roots mostly in the original Creepshow, in the crate, like this idea that there's a monster that exists, and then people, once they realize it exists, use it to their advantage. And in this way, there were the people who lived in the apartment building came to realize that there was this creature, and then quickly realized this creature could be the answer to a problem we are having. So they use this bad thing for good. But yeah, as far as the detail in the show, obviously I described the Cloggy in the script as grotesquely as I could, but also, I also tried to make clear in the script that there was something a little bit cute about it, like the little noises, little chittering noises it would make, and I think Greg Nicotero and Joe Lynch just totally understood what it was, and Joe just totally got the tone of it right.
The characters, especially like Victoria, was her writing her character, because she was blatantly, she didn't, some of the stuff she said was like, whoa,
yeah,
like borderline.
Yeah,
but writing that character, what was the challenge of that? Like, it seemed like the character, we wanted to know that she is a terrible landlord. She was also very cheap. She was kind of racist at the same time. Some of the stuff she was saying about their hair, people about their hair, and I was like, wait,
right.
Like, writing that, what was the challenge of that coming across, but not to the point where it was like, I don't want to.
Well, I think it's just really channeling people who are like that, who probably in front of a plumber, someone who is of their race, but maybe they would consider them a station below them socially. Feel like they can say anything to a certain degree. They're not going to like go nuts what they're saying, but they just kind of assume that everyone probably thinks like they do, and so she's sort of like, what's this guy going to do? He's just some loser plumber, so he might as well say what she wants in front of him. So there's not really. I mean, the challenge is just being sort of honest about those people and being upfront about it, and just writing them as you've seen people like that behave, and not try to sugarcoat it too much. And with Creepshow and classic Creepshow sort of episodes, there's always that balance of horror and the people who are really genuinely horrible, with a little edge of humor to it. And because they're generally short segments, you don't have a lot of time to build up these nuanced characters. These are comic book characters on purpose. So we get in, we make sure that she's someone that you despise immediately, because she's going to disappear for most of the episode. So you have to hate her a lot fast. So when you bring her back later, you still remember that she deserves her just desserts. I mean, Eric Edelstein, who plays the plumber, is just so good in that. He's become one of my favorite actors, and he was sort of off my radar, but he's someone that Joe Lynch really liked, and he's just such a great physical actor. He's so likable, and he's just got this huge frame, he just this giant man, That and it's kind of fun to see someone that big kind of trying to kill something that's really small, and the small thing is kicking his ass. Like it's sort of naturally enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, it was. So when they decided to use that Cloggy against her, and they managed to put it in the drain or the sewer, and is it
Mhm.
still there? Because the daughter left a picture with some
Yeah.
food, and it's like, is it their pet? Is it
Yeah.
something they're just going to live with? I mean, I was like, I had questions.
Well, I mean, it's important to note that the cloggy wasn't really bothering anyone before the
Yeah, that's
plumber showed up. So I think they decided that. So they put the bucket over it. They probably
yeah.
slide something under it, and they take it downstairs, and they let it loose into the pipe system.
Mhm.
And then how do they know that it's going to pop out of that drain and kill her? Well, I don't know. That's just movie magic, right? We only have 30 minutes for the episode, so we gotta get that going. It's same thing in the original Creepshow. It's like, how did he know that monster was going to come out of the crate and get Adrienne Barbeau and they shove her into the corner? Well, he didn't really know, but he was hoping. But yeah, I think the idea is that they're going to live with it, and the little girl finds it to be kind of like a pet, in the same way like a little kitten might crawl into an apartment building basement and she would feed it. And I think it continues. I like to think that it continues to not harm anyone, as long as no one bothers it, especially if it's getting fed.
Yeah. I thought the ending was so cute when she came downstairs and gave us some food. I was like, oh, Cloggy and her. It was so cute.
Yeah.
I even drew that that exact picture. I wish I could find it. I don't know where I sat
You
it.
keep losing stuff.
I know. Yeah. But that was a really good segment. It was, like I said, it was one of my favorites. The second one, the things in Oakward's Past, the Pipe Screams was from season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the things from Oakward's Past from season 3. That one, I could see why it was animated. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was a choice or it was like it was always going to be animated, because if that was real life, it would probably be NC-17. There was so much, getting split in half and just heads coming off. It was so crazy. But then I was thinking, how would they make all those monsters?
Exactly.
I mean, that's a lot of monsters. I mean, if they probably had a millions and millions of dollar budget, probably, but it'd still be CGI.
Yeah.
But that story, I mean, it seems complex for such a short amount of time. I even wrote notes. I was paying attention. 1621, 1421. Like I was Marnie, that's played. She does Marnie. Danielle Harris does her voice. And Mark Hamill does her dad, the mayor, which I thought, like, you could just spot it. I was like, oh, yay, they got them. But how to cram so much complexity into that story?
Well, I mean, first of all, when I pitched Pipe Screams for season 2, at the same time I pitched Things in Oakward's Past. And Greg really liked both of them. But the issue with Oakwood was that it was too expensive. It was, as you said, it was a box that opens up and there's 50 monsters. Like we weren't, that didn't really compute budget wise and time wise. I mean, it would just take forever to shoot. So at some point it came, he decided to mount that for season 3, doing it animated. They'd done some other animated stuff and it worked out. So that way we could do whatever we wanted, really. And as far as it, I think the script originally was a bit longer, because there is quite a bit in there about the history of the monsters and how they come back. And that was a little more extended in the original script. It's cut but once it's there, it's not that hard to edit it down, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think ultimately we're probably able to get 10 minutes cut off the story just by tightening it. There were a few other incidents here and there that, you know, we just cut out. But yeah, there is a lot going on in that. But it's one of those things where you can watch it and take notes like you did and sort of follow it. But even if you don't, you get enough of the gist that you sort of understand what's happening, and you can rewatch it for the details.
Yeah, you really do. The reason I really like that, because it did have some, it was complex and it was a very simple story, but it got to the point enough where you still understood it and you were more intrigued because of the dates and then how it was 2021 now. And then it was like, okay, what's going to happen now? And then everyone's disappearing. And it started from 1421 back in their journal records. And then you have this time capsule. And as soon as I saw the time capsule, I just thought, the first thing I said to myself that I actually wrote in my notes is like, what up with Creepshow and crates? Like all these crates, they always have these crates.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I didn't really think about it until this conversation, that I think the crate influenced both of my segments. But you're right. And in the opening bit of dialogue from Oakwood mentions the crate from Creepshow. Like they talk about that crate, because I was aware that I was borrowing from the crate, so I went ahead and mentioned the crate to let everyone know that I got it. I knew what I was doing. There's a lot going on in there, but you're right. At its essence, it's pretty simple. And back when I was in my 20s, I worked at as a videographer at an NBC affiliate, and so I've always wanted to write something that was about kind of a local news team going out to cover something. So I finally got a chance to do that here.
And because I really like history and artifacts and things like that, so it had that feeling in there. I was trying to piece together the why the crate was there and what it could be, and I was trying to look at the symbols and on there, like, what does that mean? Why is you know the way they were shaped and stuff? I was like, what does that mean? And her dad is just like, oh, we're going to open it. No, the creature is not coming from the forest. The crate is a gate. It's like, and I was like, why nobody ever listened to anybody?
I know. All she had to do was decode that journal just a little earlier.
I know.
And it wouldn't have been an issue.
But the thing about this story that I'm so glad I get to ask you, was the creature supposed to come out regardless if they tried to open it? What about the people before him? They didn't just like open the crate. Maybe it just burst out. So was it something like 2021 at this specific time? Were these creatures supposed to just burst out anyway?
I mean, it's a good question. It's been a while since I studied the script. But I think generally the idea was they had to open it.
Okay.
And it's possible that's in there, and it's possible that it's not. But that was my sort of hope that again, kind of like with Cloggy, if you just leave it alone, it's fine. But every 200 years or whatever, however I have it in the script, people can't they can't resist. You know, like that's a classic horror thing, right? If there's a box, somebody opens it. You know?
Yeah.
Like there's so many boxes in the history of horror movies that there's no movie if someone just doesn't open the box. but people in horror, I think people in general, like you put a box in front of somebody, eventually they're going to open it.
So the idea, once it opens and everybody just got demolished. And the way they got demolished, that poor guy, he was holding on to the van, trying to get in. I laughed because I was like, his hand got gone. He was like, open it up, trying to get in there. And then his legs, and then he just got split. I was like, man, what a way to go.
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna live, like
Yeah.
at least someone, but she did. Marnie did live because she got out. Now, was the whole idea is that it stopped at city limits?
Yes, that's right.
Because when she turned and looked, all the monsters was like, ah. I was like, why are they not getting her? And then that's when you see it's past city limits, so it's only in that town or city.
Yeah, like the city is cursed. It's cursed from way back, right? So beyond the city, there's no curse.
Got it. But that was when you see what the monsters were, and then I just laughed because one was flying with the camera on its head, and then it just went in there. We could see how it really was, and then
we cut back to the news anchors, right?
And they're just like, they're just looking at it like, okay, and now back to, I was like, hello, you just saw a whole town get wiped out.
Yeah.
That's how the news is today. Did you ever think about expanding from any story with that? Because it feels like you could go again, like especially now with the pandemic and all this crazy. Have you ever thought about that?
Not really. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I'll have to talk to Greg about that. I wonder if he would ever consider doing a sequel episode. An episode that was a sequel to a previous episode. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I think of the 2 episodes, and of maybe all the episodes, Oakwood does seem like the one that has maybe enough lore that you could dig into it a little bit more.
I really do think so. I mean, I don't know how the story would play out, but especially think just like now, like if someone moved 200 years of how things are now, especially with, you got the Karens, you got all these political things going on, and see how the crate will come out of that. I mean, I'm curious to know how we handle that now. I mean, even though the story was now, but 200 years into the future, especially with everything going on right now, and play that into the story. What would go on with that crate?
It's interesting because you definitely know they're going to open it again. So it's just a question of like, who do you have opening it? Who do you have saying don't open it? And those are sort of your your 2 factions that have to figure out, that's your characters in one way or another. Creepshow is my happy place. I think it's in horror, we all have our favorite movies, but and my favorite movie of all time is Night of the Living Dead, but that movie's kind of heavy, especially at the end. If there's a movie that I can just turn on at any moment and it just makes me happy, it is absolutely Creepshow. So the chance to work on this series really, truly is a dream come true. When I was just a little kid, I would check out the Creepshow graphic novel, that little comic thing that Bernie Wrightson did with Stephen King, and I would check that out all the time and devour it, and it really meant a lot to me. So the opportunity to work on this is just unbelievable.
Yeah, because I think the TV series, for me, it gives everyone a chance to come up with their own kind of stories than just like a whole entire movie. I really like how they did it with this.
I think Creepshow has always been begging for a TV series. It just makes sense. So I'm glad that someone finally did it, and I hope it keeps on going through many more seasons.
Yes, I really, really do hope so. Thank you so much, Daniel. This was so much fun. I can't wait to see what else you're going to be tossing out there. Is there any other projects that you're working on right now?
Well, I've got
I know you can't say much, but
left and right. I guess I'll just plug something kind of randomly. My most recent thing to come out was my graphic novel, The Autumnal. It's sort of a folk horror type of story, so that you can find that wherever graphic novels are sold.
You guys hear that? Thank you so much. If you guys really love this video, and there's more Shudderary videos going to be coming out, please like and subscribe and head over to Shudder and watch the Creepshow TV series. They're amazing if you have not seen them. And Daniel is an amazing writer. Thank you so much, Daniel, for being on my show.
My pleasure. It's more dreams are coming true right and left today.
Oh, don't make me cry. But thank you so much, guys. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye, guys.